With games like Insurgency and Day of Infamy, the one of the top lines on reviews, one of the things that people seem to notice the most is just how much almost terrifying realism that goes into the game. Like on many of the reviews I've read, like the screams are some of the things that stay with people. Like, what is it about that in a world that's chock full of shooters such as Rainbow Six and Call of Duties and such? What is it about that makes you guys pour your hearts and souls into this particular niche of super realism in your games?
I think it's just like a commitment to like detail. Like, we really are big on trying to create like almost like a simulated experience of like what it would be like there. Like audio is a big factor that we focus on. Looking in towards just the graphics and the landscapes. Again, we've used a lot of inspiration as opposed to like actual recreation. But we really wanted to create an experience that's not so arcadey. We wanted it to be a lot more punishing and painful, and sort of emphasis on like hardcore and realism, as you were speaking to. It's like those are pillars of what we were doing with that game. And as for, I don't really know how to answer the why. I think it's just sort of like a studio culture is like do it well and do it right. We always want to try to like push the envelope a little bit and kind of get people to think about things in different ways. Like, it doesn't have to be Call of Duty. It doesn't have to be Battlefield. There's room for other games who have different takes on how to make similar themes more interesting or appealing to a different type of audience.
And we are coming up on the cusp of a sort of a change of guard. We have the new console generation coming up right around the corner. How are you feeling about the future of technology and as you consider the future of New World Interactive games?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot to keep in mind. There's so many factors to consider, like whether 5G rolls out in America on time, whether we go global and do like co-dev situations for different regions. Do we go with Stadia and streaming platforms? Should we go exclusive with somebody? It's definitely a lot to chew on. We're trying to be very cautious and guarded in our decision, as opposed to just like, we're going that way because everyone says we should. We're just going to kind of let it wait and see, because our development cycle is actually kind of pivoted in a way to make sure that we're not committing right at release. We can kind of test the waters and see where the audience goes. I think that Microsoft has done a really good job. Like, their commitment to like expanding their indie catalog last year, like tenfold, compared to Sony, who was notoriously stated we're the place to play games and had to walk it back a week later. I'm not as sure on the streaming platforms though. I don't know that there's an appetite for it yet. I think it's just one of those things, like, it looks like they're laying the infrastructure and the groundwork for a bigger project. Just don't know what that looks like yet.
There is a culture of multiplayer at New World Interactive when it comes to most of your games. Do you feel like any of the advancements in cloud technology are going to change the future of that?
That is a good question. I think it just would be more about what piece of hardware you might play the game on. Like, there's this giant push right now for like mobile is a big one. I'm not sure. I think it could. We just would have to start exploring it more. I think right now it's still such new technology and emergent. There are very few experts who can successfully guide you through it, especially within our kind of reach and capabilities as a small studio. But I know it is something we're talking with a lot of our partners about, like, should we be exploring this? What's important to take away from it? What's not? So, yeah, we'll think about it. But that's about as far as I can say in terms of commitment.
Recently, PlayStation finally sort of broke down their whole wall about crossplay, and now they've finally released their toolkit to allow for crossplay on their games. And so you've got like everybody's doing it now: PC, Xbox, Switch, mobile, PS4. Is that something that factors into New World Interactive's future?
Oh yeah, crossplay is something we're actually looking into already with our partners, especially we have our console push right now, an optimization push. Our porting partner has actually already got it working in crossplay. It's actually more about finalizing the intricacies with Sony and Microsoft behind the scene to make sure that like they're okay with us doing it.
Are there any particular challenges that you see when it comes to the balance between, like, PC gaming and console gaming as far as crossplay, and especially in a multiplayer game as your games have been?
For sure. I mean, there's one of the most common things you'll see with a shooting game is sort of like aim assist to compensate for like mouse movement. It's so much easier for a PC player to move with all the keyboards and key bindings. There's so many more options, and they've got tighter flipping, around. With the controller, you're kind of limited to the analog stick, so even with increased sensitivity, there's just going to have to be like a little bit of snap targeting, probably. These are all things we're kind of toying with. We're really depending on our partner a lot to guide us through like the appropriate level of distribution of these kind of things. But we do want to try to make the experience as close to parity as possible. That being said, if we decided to go mobile, that would be a very interesting consideration of how to make a PC player equivalent to a mobile player.